Hello, Night Nation. I'm Trylko from the Sons of UCF, joined by Eric Lopez of the Black and Gold Banneret. Welcome to Around the Kingdom. Elo, hello to you.
Trace, hello to you. You're on the road. Coming up, we're going to talk some UCF basketball. Was this a successful season? Softball wins their first Big 12 series. And we got football, spring practice. Well, Trace will tell us, was it the greatest football spring opening day practice in the history of the program? That's all coming up on the fastest UCF show around the kingdom.
Before we get going, Elo, let's welcome in the third member of our team, Adam Eaton from the Sons of UCF. Keeps an eye on the clock, keeps us on our toes. Adam, hello to you.
Guys, I came all the way to Orlando, and where are you? I don't see Trace isn't here. I'm all the way here in Orlando, and you're not even here. Unbelievable.
A little traveling show this week. All right, we'll check back with you in a bit. Adam, Elo, you mentioned it. UCF football underway. And can I begin with, this is the greatest opening day of the Gus Malzahn era for spring camp. And the reason is increased access for the media, Elo. We didn't get stretching and calisthenics off the top, but Coach Malzahn allowed access for the media towards the end of the opening session. We actually got to see some plays and some cadences and some calls. Wow. Now, some of that they didn't want recorded, so we couldn't post that on social media. I respect that. Coach Malzahn wanted to give us a little more access here in year 2 of the Big 12. So for me, that makes it the greatest opening day of spring camp in the Malzahn era.
That's bold. Does that mean playoffs or bust here? Are we going playoffs? We're top team? I mean, that's awesome to hear there. I mean, did you see some notable talent in your expanded access there, Trace?
I'll tell you what is nice, though, Elo, is there's no quarterback drama that is hanging over camp on day one. All right. Interesting setup. They've got a practice midweek, again, one towards the end of the week, and then it's spring break at UCF. So there will be a pause on activities. That's an interesting way of evaluating things. But KJ Jefferson, the Arkansas transfer, I had an opportunity to speak with him one-on-one after his time at the podium. And, you know, he's exuding that confidence. Hope springs eternal as spring camp opens for, universities across the country for football. And everybody feels they have a chance, but you do feel better about the quarterback position. We've been talking about that over these last several weeks. I'll tell you what, I have an opportunity first time to interview KJ Jefferson one-on-one. He's a big dude.
That's the whole purpose, right? That's why he fits the Gus system. He's big. He's thick. He's going to be tough to get down as a runner. Plus, he can throw the football. I thought it was interesting. They talked about the defense, the new faces, right? Bringing more athleticism to the defensive side of the ball. Ted Roof, co-defensive coordinator, Trace. There were some interesting vibes. Did you get any vibes on the defensive side of the ball?
I didn't watch the defense a lot. I paid more attention to the offense, so can't speak to that as much on day one. You can only be so many places at the same time during that limited time that we do have access. It was interesting to see Tim Harris out there, return of him, now offensive coordinator, and Darren Hinshaw just sort of wandering around. I asked KJ Jefferson about interaction with him, and kind of a vague answer. So, hasn't been around him very much, but vibes are good. But what else can you expect on day one of camp? Ricky Barber was one of the people that came up on the defensive side of the ball to talk to the media post practice. And he said they're getting right at it. They have a lot to prove. And boy, no truer words have been spoken. You know, the struggles that the defense had in 2023, especially against the run. So he is correct. They need to get at it. No point in delaying things. They've got a lot of work to do over this spring camp.
A lot of work to build up those high expectations. It's coming, but FanDuel doesn't think they're high expectations. According to them, UCF kind of right now is 6th pick in the Big 12. According to the Oddsmakers, they're plus 1,100. Utah is the favorite at plus 340. Kansas State plus 360. Kansas 650. Arizona's plus 750. Texas Tech, Trace, your beloved Red Raiders, plus 850. Is that fair, UCF, where they're at?
I think it is fair, right? They're coming off a 6-6, 6-7 season with a bowl loss, shook things up amongst the coaching staff, right? And you look at some of those games. No Kansas State on the schedule this year, or Texas Tech, but Utah and Arizona, those are high-profile games for the Knights. I think this is still about brand. It's something I got to give you a lot of credit for. You've been speaking about this over the years, that brand is so important. You see it in the TV deals, the other reorganization that's going on in the sport. And I don't know that UCF has earned that respect yet at the Big 12. They're ahead of BYU, Cincinnati, Houston, but I don't know that that's saying a lot, especially after the season that those three schools had in their first year in the Big 12. So I do think it's fair. And I think maybe we've seen that UCF works from a position of being disregarded and disrespected, and it gives them something to, have that chip on the shoulder mentality that you hear so often from players and in every sport. I think UCF works better in that position than being the favorite.
That's an interesting theory. Do they fit better as a middle, under with the buzz a little bit lower? That's interesting. That being said, this is such a disrespectful ranking system. And you, Trace, are so disrespectful to UCF. How dare you agree that Texas Tech should be ahead of UCF? Did they add KJ Jefferson to this roster? No, they didn't. I think they should be ahead of Texas Tech. I agree with Utah. Arizona, they changed coaches. Remember when UCF changed Scott, that guy, what's his name, Frost left, and Josh Heupel, and everybody said, hey, what are they going to be like? Why are we asking those questions about Arizona? So I think UCF should be maybe a slot or two odds maker up higher, personally.
But Elo, as important as football is, this UCF program is a basketball school during March Madness. First Big 12 conference tournament win in dominating fashion over Oklahoma State. They own the Cowboys. Of course, we remember from football when they dominated them at home. UCF back and forth in this one in the first half. But, hey, they jump out on them. 13-0 run in the second half. They were up by nearly 30 at points in the second half, a little bit closer. Subs came in. Good start to the Knights. They have to win some games in this tournament to have a shot at an NCAA tournament bid.
Still, though, how impressive were there? Diallo, maybe his best game as a Knight, was the best big man, him and CJ Walker combined. Oklahoma State really had no answers for them. UCF dominated the free throw line, dominated the glass. Really impressive performance by UCF. They got to win. You wondered, playing them a second time, but UCF was ready to go and to get a big. Who would have thought, Trace? Big UCF men's basketball getting their first Big 12 tournament win already. That not many would have. Would you have guaranteed that back in November when we were talking?
No,
I don't think we would have predicted that in January. So pretty remarkable for them as they advanced to take on BYU. Depending when you watch this, a team that they lost 2 close games with. We'll see what they can do against it. But I do think this, Trace, I think this win locks up an NIT bid. I know some people are saying, well, don't they have that locked up already if the Big 12 gets 9? You don't know how many teams the Big 12 is going to get. They might get 9, might get 8, might get 10. I think regardless, UCF will be in the NIT, and I think have a very good chance to host an NIT game now, perhaps against Florida State or that other program in Tampa. We'll see about all that, but that would be huge, wouldn't it, Trace? If this program got to host got to play an NIT game at home and make the NIT in a year where they were in the first year in the Big 12, that's pretty impressive.
In a year in which they were projected 14 out of 14 in the Big 12, exceeded those expectations, Elo. But they have a tough task ahead of them with BYU. Close games, home and away. Who could forget they score 88 and lose 90-88 at BYU just a couple of weeks ago?
That's correct. Now, we don't know how they'll fare against BYU by the time you watch this episode or listen to this episode. But, Trace, is it safe to say that UCF basketball, regardless of the BYU result, has had a successful 2024 season for Johnny Dawkins and company?
Yeah, I think by all metrics, it has been a success. Again, projected 14th. They exceed those expectations. Come on. We were talking about 3, 4, 5. Be honest, fans. You didn't see 7, now an 8th win with this conference tournament. The top 25 games that they won, it wasn't just beating up Oklahoma State, West Virginia. It also included beating Texas on the road, Kansas at home, so some high-profile games. Energized the fan base as well. You saw the jump in attendance. For most part, during all conference games, student section was rocking. And one of the benefits by being in Orlando, right, is you saw a lot of visiting fans. Now, maybe they didn't travel from Iowa State or Kansas, but those schools have big alumni and fan bases across the state of Florida, opportunity to see their team. And they brought juice to the arena, and I think they connected with the community. Hey, with the success the Magic's had as well, Orlando, big basketball town.
Who knew? you mentioned the attendance, huge business from a business standpoint, huge success, right? Like, I mean, a ton of crowds, over 9,000. The interest is there. I think this got hooked on this team. Big success on the court. Hey, you know what basketball did that football didn't do? Have a winning season. How about that? Also had more success in conference, in a much tougher conference in the sport. The Big 12 is the toughest conference in college basketball. Number 1 RPI. It's going to have the most teams in the NCAA tournament. Way tougher than football had to deal with, and yet succeeded beyond that. I am amazed with this season. This is one of the best coaching jobs I've ever seen any UCF coach in any sport have. Nobody saw this come, but I think Johnny knows what it takes to compete in the Big 12 level. I think they have the identity. They have the formula. What he needs now is better talent, which now hopefully maybe comes with in being in the Big 12 and maybe a little support financially. But nonetheless, the formula is there to compete in the Big 12, at least the identity of them, which is good defense, depth, and now I think they need to upgrade the shooters. But this has been remarkable. I did not envision this at all. I thought if they won 4 or 5 games, it would have been unbelievable. They've won 8 Big 12 games now with this win over Oklahoma State, Trace. It's remarkable. Where do you rank this, Trace? Because nobody saw this coming. I don't care who you are.
Well, as you asked that, what I was thinking is that this is of the sports. We saw the soccers and volleyball in the fall, and we've got baseball, softball now, tennis, and so forth. Men's basketball, the most successful sport on campus in this first year in the Big 12. I know men's soccer is in the Sun Belt, but they've exceeded expectations. I think they've had the most success. They've adjusted to the Big 12 better than any other sport.
Who would have predicted that before the year? Nobody. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable year. Credit to the players and the coaches on that.
All right, time to bring back in Adam, and time for our silly game. Adam.
All right, gentlemen, here we go. Let's start with some hoops for this week. We're talking basketball. I want to think all time. When you think about UCF basketball, all-time history, and you get one answer. Eric, I'll start with you. Who is the face of UCF basketball? Who's the one face that you associate most with UCF basketball?
Man,
that's Adam, a great question.
Woo! Man, Adam, on fire. Just like that, you know, what you're wearing. You're looking fantastic. You're asking fantastic questions.
I showered, yes.
It's a rough trip. That's a great question. I think it depends on what kind of fan. If you're a fan that goes back to the 70s, probably Torchy Clark. If you're going to be more of a younger fan now, it's got to be Johnny Dawkins. I would argue the last 7 seasons, this says the Johnny Dawkins era has been the most successful Division I era in UCF basketball when you consider they're about to go to their 4th postseason. So I'm going to say Johnny in the recent. I think Taco Fall, though, is the answer that fits, will please everybody. Taco Fall.
Yeah, you started out with coaches there, Elo, and I was thinking player. I was thinking Taco Fall. I think he is the one most associated with the UCF brand and took it to another level during his time at UCF. So for me, the face, I think that if someone were going to mention UCF, they would mention it in context with Taco Fall.
All right, let's talk a little football now, Trace. I'll start with you in this one. Obviously, you mentioned, spring practice has started. I don't want to know which is the most important, but Trace, which position group do you have the most curiosity in? Is there a group that you're more curious in following? Maybe not the most important, maybe not the most noteworthy. What position group has you most curious if you think about UCF football right now?
I would say coming off of the struggles that they faced in 2023, battle at linebacker. I want to see what they do there. So that is what I'd be most curious about. I don't know what we're going to get to see, a little bit more access so far in practice 1 of spring camp, but that's what I'm most curious about.
That's a good answer, but it's a boring answer. Let's get an exciting answer. Wide receivers. Who's replacing Baker, right? You got Kobe Hudson. You got Townsend. Is somebody else going to step up? Is it a Trent Whittemore? Is it somebody like one of the youngsters? I think the wide receivers were kind of curious about to see who does KJ Jefferson like.
All right, Eric, this one's for you again, staying with football. By my count, UCF has 4 new assistant coaches or coaches who are dealing with players day in and day out. Trovon Reed, a cornerback. We have Ted Roof, defensive coordinator, linebacker. Anthony Kinsey, strength and conditioning coach. And Tim Harris, now wide receiver, offensive coordinator. Eric, which coach do you think will have a bigger impact this year of those 4? Which coach do you have sort of being the main sort of change or contributor in the new coaching staff?
Well, first of all, I thought that's why you were in Orlando, Adam. I thought you were going to be named part of this new coaching staff. You're removing your stuff. It's obviously Ted Roof. He's going to be the co-defense coordinator. He's going to help the linebackers. Do you see upgrades in the linebacking position? Do we see some defensive schemes that will improve this defense? I think that's the biggest question is Ted Roof. What does he bring to this defense? He's the one that's going to make an impact one way or the other.
That answer is boring, Elo. It's the strength and conditioning coach. Did you see RJ Harvey at the podium after the first day of practice? The dude was even bigger than we had seen him in previous seasons. I think that is an area that Coach Malzahn recognized needed improvement, made the change, and opportunity for UCF to really show out in the weight room during spring and off season, and that be a contributing factor. I think that the Knights realized they're going to have to get a whole lot tougher to compete in the Big 12.
All right, last one. This is a personal question. Obviously, as you can tell, I'm traveling this week for work. I travel a little bit. Trace, I know you travel a bunch for work, so I'll start with you on this one, Trace. I learned while I'm on this trip, there are two types of people. People who have their rooms serviced every day and people who do not have their room serviced for the entire duration of their stay at a hotel. Trace, which one are you? Fluff my pillows, give me towels every day, or are you leave me alone until I'm gone?
I'm old school. I like to see the everything, the bed made and all of that on a daily basis.
Okay, Eric?
It depends on the mood I'm in, right? It depends on the trip. How's the trip going? If I'm in a good mood, everything's going great, absolutely. Come in, take care of things. But if things are kind of rocky, if I lost some luggage, just don't even get near the room. So I think it depends on what kind of trip you're having, what kind of mood you're in.
Fair enough.
Don't even get near the room.
Eric, do you trust the hotel safe in your room? Yes or no?
I do.
Trace, you trust me?
You've used it?
Me as a guy who does not trust the hotel safe.
I've never used the hotel safe. I don't know. What do I have? What am I bringing on these trips? I got nothing putting in the safe. I'm good.
You obviously have never brought like broadcast equipment to a trip. I mean, it's kind of important.
Well, yeah, I just checked into my room. That safe's just a little sweary. What kind of equipment do you put in there? I got nothing. I got nothing to put in that hotel safe. All right, Adam, we'll check back with you in just a little bit. All right, Elo, let's go back to this little joke here about basketball school during March Madness suddenly means a little bit more to Knight Nation. But I ask you this, Elo, after the success that we talked about earlier, from the Fear the Franz to the student turnout, what is the commitment of UCF to basketball? And what is the fan base's commitment? What is the vision? Do you have a sense of what the vision is? It seems like this first year is a lot of the Big 12 will be the rising tide that lifts all the boats, but can this school succeed in football and basketball simultaneously? Can the fan base commit to the financial commitment to make basketball sustained success at UCF? What is the vision?
Well, I think the fans have shown that they can support, right? That was the big, remember the last couple of years, you and Johnny Dawkins would clash about that, about bringing attendance and an impact. You're like, well, you got to win and this or that. They brought it in. So I think the fans are bought in. The biggest question is, are you willing to spend money to back the basketball like you do football and accept the fact that because you're in the most powerful league in the Big 12 that spends as much money as anybody on basketball. And it's going to be hard with Arizona coming in. You got Arizona State coming in, Colorado, Utah. Like, honestly, I don't care who the coach is. You might be at best the eighth. You might have to shoot for the eighth best team in the conference. Now, this team was literally, maybe if you switch a couple games, they could have been to that top 8. Maybe you're in the NCAA tournament. I think that's the ceiling. Are you willing to invest in that? Or I think there's a percentage of fans that don't care, root for basketball because they're worried that, hey, we don't want that money to be at the expense of football. So I think there's that divide there that's got to be figured out. But you've got to invest in basketball in this league to have a chance to compete. And I mean compete, like make the NCAA tournament on a consistent pattern. Otherwise, you're going to have to, if you're going to nickel and dime this is probably as good as it's going to get.
And, on this discussion of resources and allocation of funds, return on investment, too. You talk about it as a football school, right? With as many dollars from fans into NIL, the kingdom, the resources at the university, right, in the athletics department, going to have to do better than 6-6. Again, I'm not knocking the 6-6 for the first year in the Big 12. But when you're talking about salaries of coaches and everything else, you're going to have to do better than that. Basketball has exceeded expectations with the resources it has. Football, Has it? Not last season.
Well, and you can make money in basketball, like it showed this year. You can make money in men's basketball. That's why football and men's basketball are the two main sports that most athletic departments spend the most money. I think you can make money in that. Will that commitment be? It's a lot harder. How much do you know? You got the NIL situation, which a new wrinkle. Is there enough money for both football and basketball? Honestly, I think that's a question for a lot of schools that are trying to figure that out, not just UCF. In fairness, it's a complicated situation, but I'm telling you, I don't care who the coach is. You have got to invest more than you have. You're playing catch up. You're playing catch up right now, and it's tough. This league, everybody cares. We've learned that this year. We'll see what happens. I don't know. I wrote about this last year, and a lot of people liked the column. A lot of people didn't like the column. But the point was, for 2 decades now, didn't matter who the coach was, didn't matter. Nobody invested enough in basketball thinking big picture. And I'm telling you, that's going to be interesting. We're going to find out in the next year or two if they're going to invest or not, I think.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'd like to hear Terry Mohajir, athletic director Terry Mohajir, come out with a vision for men's basketball. We've heard the facilities vision. Now I want to hear the vision. And again, not just men's basketball, other sports as well. I'd like to hear more from him on where he thinks the future of men's basketball lies at UCF.
Trace, one coach that certainly could talk about having success, former UCF head coach Donnie Jones, leading the Hatters to the NCAA tournament for the first time in program history with the win on Sunday, winning the ASUN automatic bid in the championship game there over Austin Peay. Trace, are you happy for former UCF head coach Donnie Jones?
Oh, sure. I'm happy for him in the moment. But what year, Elo, are all these wins vacated?
Oh, come on. Wow.
Too soon, Elo? Is it too soon? I remember some UCF wins were vacated during Donnie Jones' tenure with the Knights and some of his questionable decision-making off the court, right? So, no, good for Stetson, but I remain conflicted about Donnie Jones. Certainly had an eye for talent. I don't know what he, always made the right decisions on the court and certainly got UCF into some hot water off the court.
As long as he doesn't have Keith Tribble around him and delaying, he should be okay, I think. But we'll see. Anyway, look, it's a big win for him. I don't think it impacts UCF. Maybe he learned from his errors at UCF. I didn't think he got the most out of his roster. Everybody makes a big deal about, well, Johnny won with Donnie's players. You know who didn't win with Donnie's players? Was Donnie. He didn't win with his players. Right? So that's how that whole change happened. The bigger thing is, I kind of feel better, though, I want to admit, about UCF's loss to Stetson. When that loss happened in November, Trace, I thought we were like in for a long, long year, but it turns out Stetson not so bad of a team. They got hot in that second half. So I feel better about the loss. Do you, having been there?
Feel better about the loss. Didn't at the moment. UCF had a 20-game winning streak against Stetson. To lose at home to Donnie Jones. Hey, bit of a resurgence, not only for Stetson, some other programs in the state. It's a basketball state now, Elo, too, in addition to football.
That's right. Johnny Dawkins going to lead UCF to a 4th postseason in 7 years. I mean, hey, hotbed, baby, for basketball season. I love it.
All right, let's segue over to some prop bets, Elo. Nick and Tuck with you and me. Over under 30.5 points. UCF seniors would score against Houston. You went with the over. It looked good for you. You look at the top couple guys, and then you had 2 that didn't score anything. You end up with 28, and your over-under was 30.5. You're a loser in that one. But you had it figured out on free throws made for in the TCU game. UCF 19 of 24. I had taken the baseball and softball hits. Those totaled 15. 10-9, I am ahead of you. We're back and forth on these prop bets. Nobody can get much of a lead, Elo. You've got the one this week, over under 10 for 3-pointers against BYU in the next round here of the Big 12 tournament.
Key stat there. I think if BYU goes over 10 threes, they win. If they go under 10 threes, I think UCF has a shot for the upset. I will go under 10 threes.
Under. It was first meeting was 9, second meeting was 8. I will differ with you. I believe the Knights can knock off BYU. They've got 2 wins over UCF this season, but that I think is a good statistic. I think BYU gets the over on that, Elo.
Shall see. Hope for the best on that. Hey, congrats to Adam, by the way, on the draft. The guy's a prophet. Went 3 for 3 this year. is the champion. The guy was like, oh, I don't know what to do in these drafts. Picked Oklahoma State, picked TCU winners. Heck, I think he should get credit for this win against Oklahoma State again. The man's a genius.
And I was finished before he had even gotten to his games. He'd taken them on the road too, right? He got a road win at Oklahoma State, a road win at TCU. Credit to Adam. You get shut out, Elo. None of yours came through. Audience gets the field, so they got 3 wins. Hey, who would have thunk all these wins being doled out in the first year?
I definitely didn't think. I don't think we planned as many wins when we did this draft. So right.
Well, Big 12 play starting for baseball and softball. Let's begin with baseball, Elo. Oklahoma is not expected to be one of the top teams in the Big 12 this season. UCF certainly made them look strong. Knights get swept at Oklahoma. Let's add very few highlights in this one, Elo. Lowlights. Run ruled. UCF run ruled on Sunday in a 14-2 loss. How about game one? There was a chance. They lose 4-3. That was a chance to steal one, set a tone for the weekend. Weather had disrupted, so no Friday game, the doubleheader on Saturday. 4 errors for the Knights in that one, 10 left on base. I don't think it matters who you play, home or away. You can't have 4 errors and 10 left on base and expect to come out with a victory. Tough weekend for the Knights, get swept, and now return home for Oklahoma State.
Yeah, that's tough. Once you lost that first game, they got manhandled. Who thought we would have run rule in baseball? I thought we were saving that for softball later on. But anyway, we shall see. Look, I think reality check, right? Maybe we shouldn't be checking the RPIs too well there. Oklahoma really just outplayed them. You wonder about the depth in this pitching staff. I'm going to be curious, Trace, how they're going to respond when they host Oklahoma State. I think it's a big weekend.
Yeah, when you get swept like that, you want to win series. You want to win 2 out of 3, at least get 1 on the road. Put some pressure on them, doesn't it, now, returning home? Again, sweep, that's difficult. Heck, they're just trying to get their first Big 12 win at this point.
Well, if you can't do it at home, I don't know when you can, but you better get those wins early. You don't want to dig yourself a big, deep hole in Big 12 conference.
That is certainly the case. But things looking better for softball, Elo.
They did. Won 2 out of 3 against Kansas. Could have won the third game. Trace, you were there. Opportunities, situational hitting, not great enough for UCF. But to win your first Big 12 series, a good start for UCF against a pretty good Kansas team. Big series win for them considering what's ahead of them. But I'm going to ask you. You were there. You were the man in the outfield, left field lounge there catching the Sunday game. What'd you think? I thought it was a good series for UCF.
Left field lounge is the place to watch the games. Really enjoyed being out there with Coach Bear's husband, Bobby, and kids watching the game from the left field area. I will say this, and we spoke about it. We try not to speak too much about the topics going into around the kingdom, but we did talk about softball out of the field. Knights have been on the wrong end of a lot of one-run games. They lose Sunday 1-0. Every one of these situations to me seem high leverage. We were talking about chip on the shoulder, underdog mentality. This is it. This is toe-to-toe with the best softball in the country, right? And it gets more difficult now with ranked opponents. No disrespect to Kansas. They really could have and should have won and swept that series 3-0. 2 out of 3 is great, but there's a real possibility, Elo, that they don't get a win over their next 2 series. You know this very well, the strength that is coming at them in these next 2 series.
They're at top 5 Oklahoma State, who's ranked number 4. Then you host Texas, who's also in the top 5. The Big 12, by the way, number 2 conference in the sport. Every team in the Big 12 except Iowa State is inside the top 60 in the RPI. To your point, it's going to get a lot harder. Lexi Kilfoyle is the ace for Oklahoma State. UCF's offense got to be efficient, timely hitting. That's what's going to separate you from being at the top half of the Big 12 and the bottom half of the Big 12. You've got to take advantage of the opportunities that are given to you. UCF did not do that on Sunday, but they did do that on Friday and Saturday, so that's a positive. Caitlin Felton and the UCF pitching staff with Sarah Willis, only 4 runs in 22 innings. That was a positive direction for this softball pitching staff in Big 12.
Yeah, it's heating up, Elo. Big 12 every weekend now for both baseball and softball. Hey, UCF, just a little bit north, Adams' neck of the woods. Gabe Davis, former Buffalo Bills wide receiver, ain't going to deal with the Jags. Hey, is that where good Knights' careers go to die? We saw what happened to Blake Bortles. What do you think?
Wow, you are. That's what Andrew Glukoff's reaction was to me. Our good friend, like, said the same thing. What's with the haterade there, baby? Though that being said, you're probably right. I mean, look, Gabe. I mean, he just was inconsistent at Buffalo. We'll see if it works out with Trevor Lawrence. I don't know what that means for the wide receiving core in Jacksonville. You got Calvin Ridley, you got Kirk. Where does he fit in and all that? Should be interesting. But hey, he'll be about 2 hours closer, 2 hours away from Orlando, so that's not too bad. So hopefully he does well.
I saw him at spring practice on Monday. He was coming off the practice fields and said hi to him, and he smiled and he said, "Hey, it's free agency day." And then about 2 hours later, the news leaks out. So he was pretty excited. Close to home, certainly.
He's trying to give a scoop to somebody there.
He didn't mention where, but I did mention seeing him. I put that on social media. It'd be good to see him closer to home, but I don't know what Jacksonville has. It's an interesting move for him. Big payday for him, though. Time to bring back in Adam. Give us some corrections or educate us on some other matters that we spoke of. Adam.
All right, gents, not a lot. I'm glad my Wi-Fi held for most of the show. You guys talked about UCF spring practice. Trace, you did a fantastic interview with Kobe Hudson, and I loved one of his quotes that him and his team are eager to be great. I thought that was fantastic, the way the mentality looks for UCF football. So excited to watch more camp reports from you and Andrew Trylko. We talked about basketball. According to Big 12, lowest home attendance was not UCF. TCU had about 6,000 fans average per game. UCF at 9,000 fans. So UCF not the lowest home attendance. Talk about the vision of the program. And Donnie Jones, unfortunately, vacated 21 wins in his time at UCF. So 21 of those things that you saw.
Fans, 21 or more coming your way.
Those didn't really happen. As far as Gabe Davis is concerned, Elo, obviously there's a lot of rumors about Calvin Ridley. Where is he going to go? Zay Jones had some off-field troubles last year. So, does Gabe sneak into that wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 slot for the Jags? We'll see. But it does continue the long line of illustrious UCF Knights that have gone to Jacksonville and done but
not a lot.
Mike Sims Walker wants to have a word with both of you. That's all I'm saying.
I'm available.
That one's true. Thank you, Adam. One more thing before we go. Elo, you're seeing more and more UCF specialty license plates as you drive around town. Knights passed 37,000 plates statewide. Good for third overall, ahead of Miami, but behind Florida with 92,000 and FSU closing in on 70,000. But remember, UCF pumping out more than 15,000 alums a year. At some point, Knights will catch the Noles and the Gators. Look for new episodes midweek every week on the Sons of UCF YouTube channel. Drops later as well on the audio feed, wherever you get your downloadable content. For Adam Eaton and Eric Lopez, I'm Trace Trylko. Thank you, everyone, for watching this week's Around the Kingdom.